Well, well, well. Look what the cat dragged in. Yeah, I'm still alive. I'm still around. So, our friend Kakorotto over here has a video request for me today. He says, Master Tacho, please guide these young lost Padawans down the dreaded Hall of Forms, where we would use Forma to temper these souls we would mold to make battle-hardened units. Normally, we would seek out the Master of PM1, but alas, he died and is in the Chamber of Rebirth and is yet to arise among us yet. He didn't die. This is just like played up for jokes. We wish to show off these units in the Binding Worlds to assist allies of different yet similar lands to our own in need of our aid. Will you help us? TLDR, can you show us some Hall of Forms builds? PM1 tripped on a rock or something. Alright, Kakarot, I got you, man. I mean, I don't have a problem doing builds for Hall of Forms. That's not like something I really care for too much personally. But if there is a demand for it, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't do them. So we're going to go in order of which ones I think are the most relevant to pick up. And we're starting off with the legendary female Byleth. I think she's probably the most worthwhile Forma out of the batch this time around, mainly because she's just a bonus unit for Arena, and those are just always going to be valuable. So she also got a pretty good remix too. Now you'll notice we're not running her remixed passive or her refined weapon, and both of them are very good, right? There's very little reason why you wouldn't want to run those. It's just that the way Hall of Forms works, you want to just pick up as many skills as you can get because they're all going to be free essentially once you pick up the unit with the Forma Soul. So no point in not going for the best available weapon and C skill, even though she's just going to run her own, probably. So in this case, we have Devoted Cup. That's the weapon from the Valentine Hubert, and it's a pretty solid weapon. It's got a debuff. It does Sabotage and, I believe, Speed and Res -7 on the nearest foe, and then chains to foes in 2 spaces of that foe. And then it also has a light version of Ninja Lucina's true damage effect. So it is actually a workable weapon. You may consider it because it does do different things than Byleth's actual weapon. Although Byleth's actual weapon with the drive, all stats, and the tempo to allies is pretty damn good. So I pick and choose, I guess, but the debuff on Devoted Cup is nice. We got Harsh Command here. You may be wondering why there's no reposition gate, and we're getting to that, so don't worry. Flare right now for this particular build, because we do want to make use of Lagu's Loyalty for the sustain and also the 3-hit special, which this weapon doesn't have -1 on. But in the future, if you're going to run her weapon and you're still going to want to run Lagu's Loyalty, then you would just go for a higher cost special like Frost Moon, as we're going to show later. And then Breath of Life 4, because it does something different, at least, than her own C skill, which is giving her, I think, attack and speed up 7, and then warping to allies, and then also it gives her no follow-up. So it's going to be real tough to beat her preference skills, but Breath of Life is at least doing something a little different, and it is actually pretty viable for Arena just for support to give your allies a little bit more of a fighting chance. So this would be one possible build. Obviously, it's more so a bait-focused build, but this would be the build I would actually recommend people go for if they're trying to pick up this Byleth. So Reposition Gate, very, very powerful skill and good tool for Arena mode, where is going to be the most place you're going to be running her. Frost Moon, of course. It's unfortunate that she can't get Ice Wall yet, because that's not actually available in Hall of Forms right now, but it doesn't really do much good for her anyway, because you got to have a lot of res to use that skill, and unfortunately this Byleth doesn't really have the best res stat. So perfect attack and speed gives us no follow-up, and then lots of attack and speed, which she wants. We got Resonance 4, but you could feel free to go for Occult Strike as well. I feel like Resonance 4 is slightly better, mainly because it also has the DR piercing, but as far as true damage is concerned, it's not really all that much better than Occult Strike, and in some cases, Occult Strike might even be a little better because of the 7-ship pre-combat. But like I said again, the DR piercing of Resonance, I think, gives it the slight edge there. And then Fatal Smoke, because it lets you beat Marnie pretty cold. The idea with this Byleth, if you're running her in Arena, would be to give her the Lin Ring. So with that, she can just snipe Marnies from a mile away and be pretty safe. So yeah, there we go for the builds for the female Byleth. Next up, we have the Summer Edelgard and Altina combo. Now, this is a harmonic unit, so if you don't have them, you could run them for resonant battles, and they'd be pretty helpful in there. They're actually really good in that mode because they just want to do a lot of actions with Edelgard having Raging Storm and a bunch of like Gale Force potential. So just having her jump around in there is pretty helpful and take a lot of actions. She can be a good Thief Slayer in that mode. So yeah, that would be one reason, but also because I think they're probably just the second best option besides Byleth. And they haven't been refined yet either, so maybe you want to gamble a little bit and hope for them to get a good refine. I haven't seen an Edelgard unit in this game yet get a bad refine. So Edelgard dev is always out of control when he's fixing up his Edelgards, so you could expect her to get a pretty sick refine when the time comes. So maybe not a bad idea to deck her out with some good skills while you got the chance. Armored Blaze should go without saying, just gives you a lot of true DR in combat against melee opponents. And also, you can now proc this twice on her. Not just with Twin Near Save, but also if you've got an ally with the support like the Fallen Male Allir and Female Allir let people proc their defensive specials twice. So would be pretty good there. Earth Fire Boost gives us attack and defense and guard, which is pretty good. And a little bit of HP, 5 HP. Wily Fighter, it's going to nullify the enemy's bonuses, and then it also gives us 20% true damage and true DR based on defense, I believe it is. And then a guaranteed follow-up as well, so that would be the fighter's skill of choice for this one. And then Twin Near Save should go without saying. You're free to pick and choose, though. I've got 2 different Near Save builds for her because they both are... I mean, there's just a lot of available skills ready. In this case, Slick Fighter and Close Defense could be a combo, because Close Defense nullifies the enemy's bonuses, and Slick Fighter nullifies your own penalties. So those 2 skills work pretty good together, but then this one over here gives you Guard, which could also be a pretty handy tool to have. So it's really just pick and choose whichever one of these flavors of Near Save builds you like better. And then finally, we've got this build here. This one's a more player phase-oriented build with Assault Rush, of course. Gives us charge and +1 movement, and then also attack up 5 if we meet the condition for it, which I don't remember exactly, but it's not hard to activate. It's pretty easy. So that could be pretty good. Also, it gives us a special jump as well with Armored Blaze, so we can proc that more readily. Or Gale Force, too, if you're running that. So, yeah, that would be good. Wily Fighter, once again. I think overall, in a bubble, it's better than Slick Fighter, because the amount of bonus support going around right now, like, just units exist, and they give all their allies in 2 spaces, or even 3 spaces, 2 stats +6 as a blue buff. So being able to turn that off is pretty handy. And then Sly Sturdy Blow in this particular case, which would allow us to just go for the most DPS option if you're Gale Forcing with her. So yeah, those would be the builds for Edelgard there. Oh, also these I guess we can talk about these weapons slightly. Farmer's Tool basically gives you a little bit of support. It gives attack and defense up 6 to yourself and allies in 2 spaces. And then it also essentially is just bonus double or 4 after that. So it's a pretty solid weapon. It's not too shabby, and you could even argue it's better than Edelgard's base weapon at the moment, because the only real advantage that weapon's got over this is the Brave Attack. But you could just give her the Erica Ring if you wanted to. So, yeah, overall, I mean, this weapon might be better up until she gets her refine. And then the Campaign Blade gives you attack and defense of 5, and then potentially attack and defense -10 on the foe, depending on 25% of your HP at the start of combat, which... I mean, this unit's got a lot of HP, so it's not going to be very hard for her to get the full -10. And then after combat, you get 10 HP healing, which is pretty good for a tanky unit. So, yeah, not too shabby of a weapon there. So there we go for the builds for her. Okay, next up, we've got the Summer Dimmitri, and I actually made a mistake. I thought this guy was a Lance unit for a second while I was doing these builds, and I was like, wait a second, why can't he pick up the Johanna Lance? But, no, he's actually an Axe unit, which... I mean, look at that weapon and tell me that's an axe. Doesn't it look like a lance? It's an ore, right? Isn't it an ore that he's got? How is that not a lance? But regardless, I mean, luckily for him, the Spring Lonku is available in Hall of War, or he's available in the shop to buy with the... What are they again? The Grails? He's in the Grail shop, so you can buy him, and that means his skills are available in Hall of Forms, and he's got a pretty good axe. It's doing the Crux debuff of all stats -5 to the foes in 3 columns and 3 rows, and then it turns off any special acceleration abilities that they've got. So half of tempo, basically, which is pretty good. So nice weapon overall, and then it's got a lot of true damage built in as well. So yeah, not a bad weapon by any means. Harsh Command Plus, pretty much his only assist that I would recommend in here. You could go for a double rally or like a rally up or something like that, but those are kind of useless nowadays with how many or how much access and ease it is to get blue buffs out of your passives or your own weapon now. So Harsh Command, I would say, is the way to go. Haze Slice is definitely the special to go with for him, even though you may think No Quarter is still pretty useful, but no, it's not as good as Haze Slice, and it's even more not as good as Haze Slice now that we have the Fallen Alir support to let you proc the DR of Haze Slice twice. So I would say definitely that's the one you want to go for. Attack and Speed Excel on this particular build, I don't know if Blue Skies is available yet. If Blue Skies is available, then definitely go for that instead of Excel, but if it's not, then you want Excel, but if Blue Skies is available, I would say go for that instead. And then Flow Guard, just to get a little more defense. It inflicts Scowl on the enemies and Guard, gives him null follow-up, and then it gives him some stat drops on the foe. So it's an okay tool, pretty good if you're just trying to be like a tank overall, with the Excel that I had before. And then even Attack Wave N gives him a lot of damage and a little bit of attack support for allies. This one over here, this one is more so like going full on with the DPS. So we got Sly Swift Sparrow, Assault Force, and Attack and Speed Insighted Hone. This would probably be the primary build to go for if you're just trying to build this guy in a bubble and you don't have like a Leer support or anything like that to buff his tankiness or anything of the sort. So pretty good build once again, and my go-to skills would probably be these ones. And then finally, we've got a more like supporty type of build with also a lot of DPS though, because Momentum 4 hits like a freaking truck. So you would want to give this guy the Sigurd Ring on a build like this, have him run in, attack with Momentum, and then come back and use Shadow Shift to get somebody into a better position. Flared Sparrow also sets up the flame tiles to make it hard for the enemies to like try to chase after you. So this would be a pretty solid build for somewhere like Aether Raid's offense, where you want to like have someone just run in and attack and then get a better position for somebody else, or just break a structure and then use Shadow Shift to repost someone in. So yeah, those are the builds for the Dimmitri, and then finally we've got Claude over here, who is actually able to get a Jahana weapon, which is pretty good for him. Now his dagger is actually, believe it or not, still kind of decent, because it has the Brave effect built in, and you can't run Erica Ring on range type units. So it's not quite as easy to get Brave attacking on them as it is for melee right now. So his preference weapon is still pretty solid, although this, I think, I mean, just the amount of things you're getting out of the Jahana dagger is just a little too much. Like, you get the reflect damage, you get 7 flat DR on their first and Brave attack, you're giving the ally support with attack and speed and dodge and like all of that stuff. So it would be hard for me to not say this is better than his regular weapon, but his regular weapon does actually have a little bit of utility with the Brave. Lethality is really the only special you're available to get for these guys right now. So dagger units, lethality is what we want. Okay, then we have Flared Sparrow, Full Disarm, and Lookout Force. This would, again, just like the previous Dimmitri build, be like more so geared towards Aether Raid's offense, where you can have this guy attack somebody and then use Lookout Force. It has built-in Canto 2 and then Distance Swap, which is pretty good. And then Full Disarm would let him bypass traps and then just Canto somebody, or Canto away and swap somebody in to safety. So it's a pretty good tool to have this in somewhere like Aether Raids, where you can just bully traps and get your units into a better spot. And the Flared Sparrow, again, I like it a lot in Aether Raid's offense. Alright, then over here, this is the DPS build, which, again, this would probably be the go-to build if you're just using him in general, and not really for, like, Aether Raid specifically, or anything like that. So, Sly Swift, Assassin Strike, and Speed and Defense Crux gives you a really good amount of DPS there, and I would recommend something like the Lin Ring, or the Celica Ring, or the Sigurd Ring on a build like this to just maximize his amount of reach. And then finally, this build over here. This one, again, this is like just a different flavor of the DPS build. Not quite as immediate DPS, because Speed Taker and Fatal Smoke are a little bit more like, not always going to be at optimal strength, but when they kick in, they really kick in. So, yeah, this one would be really good with the Lin Ring, where you can snipe people from far away, build up your speed with Speed Taker, and then Fatal Smoke is nullifying any, like, miracle effects support that Rhea or Lena or whoever might be giving to allies, or just allies or enemies just having that naturally, like the new Seliph, for example. And then Attack and Speed Mastery gives us Kanto and a lot of attack and speed. So yeah, there you guys go for the builds for Claude. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you're building any of these units yourself. Like I said, I would say in order of best to worst, I would say Byleth's probably the top priority, followed by Edelgard, and then Dimmitri, and then Claude, unfortunately, in last place. But I can imagine all of these guys getting pretty sick refines when their time comes, because they do really favor 3 houses, and particularly Edelgard, I can imagine being really crazy, especially since Raging Storm, despite being power crept, like I feel like Slick Fighter and Wily Fighter are just straight up better than Raging Storm, even with the guaranteed second action. But having that extra action is so powerful, man. It's just so good. So I would be, like, really shocked if this Edelgard isn't insane. And she's probably going to have an extra action on her weapon when it gets refined as well. So, yeah, there you guys go. Just some food for thought. Let me know your thoughts, and I will catch y'all again on the flip side.